Nick, you ready?
Yes.
All right, I'd like to call to order the Hanover Selectboard meeting for Monday, August 19th, 2024. We will go straight to agenda review. Are there any agenda items for which the Selectboard would like to reorder?
Reordered it.
No. Okay, all right. Let's move to public comment. This is the period of the...
Oh, wait.
Oh, yeah.
Announcement
Announcements.
recognition.
Oh, we do have, actually, we do. Rob?
Sure.
Yes.
So one of the things that I was hoping to introduce to the board and to the community was a recognition of our staff who've achieved a 5-year benchmark, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years of service. Corey Stevens, our IT director, is at 25 years of service this month.
Wow.
Included in your packet is also a list of the anniversary dates of all employees hired in the month of August. So I share this with you tonight, and I wanted to give a special shout out to Corey. 25 years of service for this community is a significant benchmark, and I'd like to recognize him for those years of service and congratulate him.
Cool. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Corey.
Okay, so we will move now to public comment. This is the period of the meeting when the public is welcome to address the select board. This is for topics that are not otherwise on the agenda. And we ask that individuals restrict their comments to 5 minutes. Questions will be directed to the chair of the select board. And that's it. Are there any members of the public who have comments for items other than what is on the agenda? If you could please come forward and state your name, please.
I'm Nancy Welch, a Hanover resident and member of Upper Valley for Palestine. As of 2 p.m. today, more than 180 people and organizations signed a public letter calling on you to change the date of the forum on the events of May Day and to change also the format so that the select board as a whole.
Nancy, there is an agenda item on the listening session. Would you like?
Yes, this is calling for you to change the listening session, which I believe is not your agenda item.
It is not, but it is a topic that's relevant to the agenda. It's going to be the first item after this. Do you want to just wait and be part of that?
We can do it then.
Okay, terrific. Okay. So, any items that are not on the agenda? Dina, did you want to come up?
I just have a quick
Would you mind coming to the
I don't
table?
mind at all, but I just only have a question. That on the agenda, the business requiring discussion, and I think you just answered it. You will take public comment, correct?
On those 4
Business
topics.
requiring discussion, you will take.
Yeah,
Public
for
comment.
those topics, we will take public
That's
comment
all I
then.
need to know.
Yes,
Thank
okay,
you.
all right. Any other? David?
My name's David Henselette. I live at 93 Lebanon Street. Lived there for 40 years. I have a duty to defend the Constitution. I'm a retired military officer. After high school, I had little opportunity for college. I had no money saved just for no scholarships or anything like that. So I decided I'd go into the Army and go to Europe. I was stationed in Germany protecting former Nazis, where 6 million people were killed while no one did anything to stop their imprisonment and murder. Later, many said they were just following orders. I never could have guessed that my family and friends would be placed in a concentration camp by Hanover officials. The fence erected around our property blocked our driveway and fire lane, depriving us of our liberty to drive where we chose and to be protected by the fire department and the police department in an emergency. The placement of the fence was overseen by Robert Hausman. For the 25.5 months our freedom was restrained in violation of state and federal law, the Select Board allowed us to be restrained despite my cries for help. It wasn't until I got a court order that Robert Hausman came and opened our driveway and fire lane. I have the video. For the last 6 years, I have come to select board meetings and tried to explain the abuse we faced by Mr. Hausman's criminal act. Mr. Hausman fenced religious and racial minorities, including my wife, Anna, a Ukrainian Jew. These crimes were known by 13 Hanover officials. Instead of looking into my contentions, the select board has minimized my speech, had me arrested, refused to answer questions, refused to call in state or federal authorities. Instead of being disciplined for abusing Hanover's unwelcome citizens, Mr. Hausman has been promoted to acting town manager by a unanimous board. With 2 accomplices remaining on the board, Athos Rassius and Joanna Whitcomb, who both voted to put up the fence but refused to free us. The new members may be ignorant as to Mr. Hausman's violations of law and perhaps town rules. I have asked repeatedly for the select board to place my complaints on the agenda, but it seems you're avoiding this. It is long past time to examine the rules of Mr. Hausman at all. I shouldn't have to beg to get someone to stand up.
Are there any other members of the public who have items that are not on the agenda? Okay. So let's turn to business requiring discussion, the first of which is the continued discussion of the Town of Hanover informational listening session on the May 1st event. I would like to first review the document that's in the packet. Rob, do you have any comments to introduce that?
The purpose of the guidelines that I've included in your packet is so that there's a clear understanding of what we can discuss, what should be open for discussion based on guidance from council, pending criminal cases and pending litigation, would limit how we can engage the public in conversation, and therefore, with some assistance, prepared these guidelines.
Thank you. Thank you. So maybe we can just review those guidelines, and I'll take a stab at it, and Rob and other select board members. So the purpose is to understand police protocol and gather community feedback on the May 1st event in a respectful, productive, and structured manner. The structure involves a welcome and introduction by the moderator, brief introduction and overview of the session's purpose. The moderator will be Jeremy Eggleton. However, in a structured comment section with Police Chief Charlie Dennis, we will have a select board member and posing questions strictly to make the flow more conversational in tone. It does not represent an exhaustive list of questions, and it will be somewhat genericized to address ongoing criminal cases for which we will not be able to answer certain questions. I realize that's frustrating for some folks, but that's the constraint which we have. We will have breakout groups. We'll be divided into 5 groups, each anchored by a select board member and a note taker. These will be randomized groups, and we hope that we have a nice, respectful dialogue for various points of view with respect to feedback that can be provided to the select board. Those groups will report out as we reconvene in a larger group. Rules of participation, respect and civility, active listening, relevance, time management. Topics that are off limits or discussion related to ongoing cases or investigations, slander or disparaging remarks about town employees. So that's the basic structure. Did I miss anything, Rob? Or?
I think you've touched on all the key points. The goal here is to ensure that we can listen and understand the concerns and comments from the community, digest them and deal with them in the context of pending criminal cases and litigation.
Officer.
I have a question, just about format with respect to time management, which is on there as well, right?
Yes.
Get them in 2
Yep.
forms. Did we discuss, that it says be mindful of the time allocated for speaking and obviously ensure that everyone has an opportunity to share their views. Have we discussed time allocated at all? Or I could envision, one session ending at a hugely different time than other sessions, for example. That could be a big issue. I'm not sure how to manage it. It could be an issue though.
I think the goal here is to conclude the small breakout groups at 8:45 and give us 15 minutes to report out to the collective body. At which point staff will collect the notes and compile them and make them available.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. Other questions on the part of the select board? Jared, I failed to mention Jared Burke is attending on the phone. Jared, any questions?
I have none, and I look forward to tomorrow, prior to the meeting, to just review the coordinating instructions one last time before we go into that meeting.
Very good. Okay. Thank you. So all are welcome. Don't have to be residents of Hanover. We look forward to an informative session. Are there members of the public who have questions? Nancy, please come forward and reintroduce yourself if you don't mind.
I'm Dr. Nancy Welch. I'm a Hanover resident. I'm a member of Upper Valley for Palestine. As of 2 p.m. today, more than 180 people and organizations signed a public letter calling on you to change the date of the forum and to change also the format so that the select board as a whole, the police chief, and other town officials can respond to the questions and statements that were discouraged at Hanover's town meeting. The majority of the 180 signees were witnesses to or arrested in the unprecedented militarized police response to the nonviolent Labor for Palestinian Liberation rally on May 1st. The majority of signers are also Dartmouth students, faculty, and staff who are not on campus during the sparsely populated summer quarter. These are the people who were most affected by the police repression of May 1st and from whom you most need to hear. Daniel Lynn, a Hanover resident and member of both Dartmouth Alumni for Palestine and Dartmouth Faculty and Staff for Palestine, will be distributing to each of you a hard copy of the letter with the signees as of 8 a.m. this morning. While he does so, I'm going to read just a few of the comments left by those who signed. First, from Alam Abu Awad, a postdoc at Dartmouth and witness to May Day. As a Palestinian American with family in Gaza, I'm appalled that this peaceful protest of students, faculty, staff, and community members was met with violence and unnecessary arrests. From Noor Bukhari, a Dartmouth student arrested at May Day. I was present at the Hanover town meeting when this discussion was promised, and the August 20th listening session does not fulfill the demands of people who were arrested or witnessed the police brutality on May 1st. From Joy Clendenning, native of Hanover and parent of a 2024 Dartmouth graduate arrested May 1st. This escalation by Dartmouth and the town of Hanover makes clear the myth of Hanover as an idyllic, safe community. What a misuse of taxpayer dollars. The Hanover Selectboard should postpone the discussion of the May 1st response and plan an inclusive event. From Dale Eichelman, Dartmouth Ralph and Richard Lazarus Professor of Anthropology and Human Relations Emeritus, the date selected for the listening session shows either an extraordinary insensitivity to Dartmouth's academic calendar, a deliberate calculation to minimize community input, or both. I urge postponement of the meeting until late September or early October. From Hanover Students for Justice in Palestine, there must be transparency about and accountability for the police brutality peaceful protesters endured on May 1st. The August listening session is not being planned in good faith in terms of the date, format, etc., and will only provide the Select Board and Hanover Police Department the opportunity to avoid meaningful consequences. This meeting is a mockery of the idea of justice. And I'll end with Annalise Orlick, Dartmouth history professor and former chair of the Jewish Studies program. What happened on May 1st was an assault on law-abiding residents, students and faculty, a waste of taxpayer funds, and a severe abuse of power by Hanover police. These and many other people who signed this letter are not on campus now, are not able to be there tomorrow night. Those of us who are in town tomorrow evening will be present at this so-called listening session, but will not participate in an exercise that by design disenfranchises the majority of people who have something to say to you about their experience on May 1st, and that shields the town of Hanover and its police department from public accountability. I and the more than 180 signers of this letter urge you to schedule an open town meeting style forum in the fall when you can expect that protests against ongoing U.S. investment in genocide in Gaza will persist, and when the public expects to hear whether you will persist in using town police and taxpayer dollars to criminalize nonviolent protest and enforce policy violations that should remain internal to Dartmouth. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Did we lose Jared?
No, I've got another call coming in.
It's about your extended warranty on your car.
No, it's about my mother.
Oh.
Sorry.
Well, Jared,
No, we're good.
you okay?
Jared, you still there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, sorry about that.
Um,
Sorry, my apologies.
I will say, and not to put words in office, is not what I do it often, sorry, office, but the listening session was characterized as such at the town meeting on May 14th. I listened to the tape, the CATV time marker at -3 hours and 8 minutes. It was characterized as that. It was not characterized as an open forum for answers, et cetera, et cetera. We are doing what we can to hold this session, notwithstanding the constraints that have been put upon us by our council. So the fact that we're going forward with this under the constraints that we have is what we can do, given the situation. So I understand it's not what everyone wants. Love to have participation. I do think it will be informative. Other comments from select board members?
I think you distributed that letter to the Valley News as well. That
It's being published tomorrow. There was a glitch.
I think that was, you raised some good points in there as well, Carrie, with respect to timing. There's never a perfect time. Certainly a lot of people who were around at the time of the event are not going to be able to participate regardless of when this is organized. And delaying is not necessarily helpful. I think it just pushes things further down the road when it becomes even more of a distant memory. And just to emphasize what you said, the discussion at town meeting was the reason that I spoken for the select board at that point with a lot of caveats, meaning I didn't, we have 2 new board members who were not even on the board at that time, and 2 board members who are no longer on the board. Am I counting correctly? I've lost track of time.
One new board member.
1 new board member, thank you.
Two new ones.
Two new ones, yeah. Sorry, I apologize for my lack of being able to remember things. The town meeting is an important time when the town gets together to do important business for the town. There's a lot of statutes that we need to follow, and that is the only point during the year where the business of the town can get processed. And New Hampshire is very clear on that at a state level, and the reason we tried to dissuade comments at town meeting to a more organized session is partly to not overshadow the importance of town meeting in terms of getting the business of the town done, but also to give this issue its due respect. And having a discussion back in May when no one was even prepared to summarize issues, really speak on them in a coherent, thoughtful manner, I think would have been a big disservice, which is why one of the main drivers for pushing that to a meeting in a more appropriate fashion, in a more appropriate setting, with the select board organizing the meeting. So that's why, that was the main driver for that format change back in May.
Well, and then there was commencement and 4th of July and our vacations and
Well, there's
people's
scheduling
vacations,
issues.
scheduling
We
challenges.
tried to schedule this earlier, and it was
Couldn't make it
was-
happen.
It was impossible. This
Can I
is
ask a follow-up question?
Yes, you may.
Yes, so at town, first.
If you could just come,
Sorry.
it's for the
Sure.
benefit of the CATV.
Plus we had to
Town,
do the
the
budget.
town meeting warrant included 2 police budget items. And, people were trying to raise questions about, in light of particularly one item that would have expanded armaments for the police and so forth. How are the police being used? What is the relationship between the town of Hanover and Dartmouth? Why was there that kind of militarized response? At what point are you going to hold a forum where we can raise questions about the nature of policing in Hanover and the use of police to enforce and criminalize violations of Dartmouth property that are, policies that are in no way a threat to life or to property? If town meeting isn't the place for that kind of discussion, then I'm not sure what town meeting is supposed to be except a rubber stamp on the warrants.
For those particular points, I did address, I think, very clearly that the purpose of those the 2 warrant items I think you're referring to, in terms of creating reserve funds for them. And I think that I believed at the time satisfied the majority of folks in the room. Not everyone, I understand,
But it passed.
and it passed.
And Nancy, notwithstanding your skepticism, I do think that tomorrow night will be informative. And I think that people will learn things. I know the select board members did. So I would suggest that tomorrow night be part of that.
So I just want to reiterate, it's not just my skepticism, it's the more than 180 people who signed the letter, many of whom would like to be able to attend such a forum. Should you consider planning one for the fall?
Okay, any other speakers, comments? Dina, and then,
Tom.
Dina, Tom. Okay, do you want to go first? Sure, okay, yeah.
I think it's time. I don't know.
Hi, my name is Daniel Lin.
Daniel.
I've been
Daniel,
resident here
sorry,
for-
yes.
Sorry, what?
Yes, Daniel, sorry, Daniel, yes,
No
please.
worries. Daniel Lin, been resident for 6 years. I think what Nancy mentioned very clearly lays out a lot of really good points and I understand you saying that there are certain things from your council that you need to abide by. I think one thing that remains unclear to me is that you continually frame this as a listening session where you want to hear from the constituents of Hanover and from those who are affected by this event. And I still have not heard you answer why would you plan an event where if you're trying to get feedback from the community, why would you plan an event where the community cannot show up to give you that feedback? And I think that is the cognitive dissonance that most people have, and I'm sure you probably have as well. If you're trying to hear feedback, and there are people who want to give you feedback, but you have intentionally planned an event that does not allow them to give you that feedback. There's no alternative form that they can fill out. You haven't invited anyone to like mail you a letter. It just, that's what I'm really confused by.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Yes, others? Dina, if you could come forward to the table, please.
So, I'm Dina Romero, Hanover. This is a very difficult and very fraught issue. The substance of the case, the reasons why the students were on the green. And I appreciate that what you're trying to do in the expectations guidelines is focus on the process. And I appreciate that. And while I am in enormous sympathy with the first speaker who I just met, I don't believe that it was by design. I believe those were her words, that you chose a date when most people weren't going to be here. I don't believe that. I believe you in good faith. I want to believe that you in good faith picked the date that was going to work for the most people involved who were running this. But that said, what the previous two speakers have said is very, very compelling. And rather than canceling tomorrow, I would just like to ask you to consider a follow-up forum so that those who are not able to attend because they're not on campus, it's summer, people go on vacation, that they will be able to attend. And I think the fall is an appropriate time. So all I'm asking or suggesting is that you consider a follow-up session.
Okay, thank you, dear. Yes, please.
Sharon Rakusin, Hanover. I just agree with everything that's been said. This summer, just 3 weeks ago, I tried to reach out to all of the people that care about the situation, the genocide in Gaza, and I wanted to make a video for our members of Congress, and no one was available. So that's where things are at right now. The people that care the most, that want to speak, won't be here. So I hope that you're doing this in good faith, but it really doesn't feel that way. And it's very clear, having been on campus on May 1st until it got dark, when we were singing, and that's when I left, that it ended up the way it did. It seems like there's not a whole lot to talk about. The onus is on the town. And I want to say one more thing. Where was Charlie Dennis when I was attacked at town meeting? I was assaulted by someone who doesn't even live here, who actually presented voter intimidation. Nothing was done then, nothing. Not even an apology. And the action that the police took in this town on the chorus of beautiful voices on the green is totally insulting.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Anything else, Selectboard? No. Thank you all for your input. We look forward to a productive session tomorrow evening. We look forward to seeing you there. Let's move on to review of town manager job description. And Rob, we did make a few edits relative to the last meeting.
Yes, thank you. At the request of the select board chair, we've been looking at the job description to make sure there's clarity in the way it sets forward the job requirements and clarifies how the job relates to the select board, the position relates to the select board's authority. With that in mind, I've edited the highlighted changes are in yellow and in strikeout. Happy to answer any questions specifically. I should note that it has been reviewed by council, and based on her comments, we deleted the contact segment, which explains what the expectations are for public interaction. That should be self-explanatory given the nature of the job.
I just had a question about the chief executive officer, just because I thought that maybe presented some confusion, because I mean, I've seen it described as the chief executive, which is a little bit different than a CEO. It's a little bit different than a corporation. And I've seen the role described, statutorily as a chief administrator. Like chief administrator, and sometimes it's statutorily it's chief administrator, and then sometimes because you can add chief executive.
So again,
so I don't know if it's an O that is causing maybe a little bit of confusion or lack of clarity for me.
So you prefer chief administrative officer?
But yeah, that's like by statute, and it could also be the chief executive. It can be both. That's I think how like Exeter does it is chief administrative officer plus chief executive.
This language was taken from the language that was used in the solicitation of the last candidates for the town manager, so it was taken from that document, but and I don't have strong feelings either way.
Yeah.
You said council reviewed it?
Yeah, I see Jenny's point. I'm not overly concerned about striking the word officer, chief executive.
Sure.
Go with chief executive.
Does that work for you?
Sure. I mean,
Or chief administrative officer? I
That
mean, I don't know,
doesn't sound
that sounds
important.
weird.
Administrative. Sounds boring.
it sounds more boring.
So
It is
let's not go with boring.
statutorily the job.
We want an exciting person. We don't want boring administrators.
So there is a slight distinction in that town administrators have a very different function
Yeah.
as town manager versus town managers. So town administrators serve as sort of the executive secretary for the select board and carry out the directions of the select board on a day-to-day basis, whereas the town manager runs the day-to-day affairs. So I think chief executive isn't out of order here.
Okay.
And it's exciting.
It is. All right, we'll go with chief executive. Any other comments on the revisions? No? Okay. Rob, let's move on to the ethics policy.
Sure.
And revisions here were minimal, right? I think we reordered the definitions towards the beginning of the document.
You asked that the date of adoption and revised date be put to the top.
Right.
You asked for a signature page.
Yep.
And you reordered the document and deleted a repetitive paragraph.
Right.
Yes.
So we have accomplished that and have submitted it to you and suggest that if it's ready for public hearing, that we schedule that public hearing for September 9th.
Do you want a motion to do that now?
One
you wanna
very-
discuss this?
One very small, on page 7, the signing page, just the date of the year, it's got an extra 0 in there, you'll see it. So
Oh, yes.
yeah,
Thank you.
but that's it.
Oh, yeah.
But that, yeah, that's it. Any other comments? No, so we do this under,
Business
have it-
requiring action.
it's
but-
gonna come up under action, so,
Okay.
There's one more typo
yeah.
on D. For exclusions, D, police officer should be plural.
Bottom of page 6.
Sorry.
No. Okay, unless there's anything else, Jared, anything on your end?
No, I have no additions or changes. You caught the one thing I was gonna point out, which was the exceed 0 there.
All right, then, unless there's any other comments, let's move on to the review of the social.
Wait,
Yeah.
do we have to set this up for,
We're going to, in a minute, we're gonna do the motions under requiring action. Yeah, I know it's.
What?
Yeah, well, we have to, though. You want to do the motion right now?
Yes.
Okay.
I move that we set a public hearing on Monday, September 9th to review and approve the Town of Hanover ethics policy.
second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jared?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, done. All right. Next on the agenda is the review of the social service funding policy and funding history.
This is good memory at this, that we had this in writing.
Yeah. I think Peter did it.
Yeah.
Rob, any introductory comments here? Yes, sorry.
I'm sorry, Ellen is here.
Oh, yes, okay.
And Ellen, I don't want to put you on the spot, but Ellen did prepare the history of funding.
Thank you.
The history shows a pretty, an increase this current year of about $25,000 in funding request. So I think that the overall takeaway from town staff is we should follow the guidelines that we have. If the guidelines are appropriate, if not, let's amend them to make sure that they reflect the wishes of the select board and the funding policy of the town. And then let's get this in front of the social service agencies early so they can meet our expectations, or at least make application consistent with our expectations.
Okay.
Ellen, is there anything you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I
Oh, do you want to come up?
forward. William, Director of Finance. Just a sort of, I think, starting the process earlier will allow for, I think, better and clearer conversation and decision-making around making sure that we're supporting agencies, that the residents of Hanover benefit from. I have no doubt that all the agencies that come before us have very good services that they provide. But I think by starting earlier that the process that we'll be able to do a better job of making decisions, and then also at a time understanding how that fits within the overall budget.
And are we still gonna have them come, if we still have them come visit, we should do it not during the budget session? Yeah.
Earlier.
That's what you were just saying?
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
When would that be good in the process? I mean, is it December? Do they have their budget pulled together by then?
Okay.
I don't know.
I think the nonprofits will respond to our request.
Yep.
It's
It's just when it makes sense for us.
It would make
Preferably
sense.
not February and March.
We should be shooting for no later than the first meeting in December as we start to run into the holiday seasons.
But it's a great point, Joanna, in that then we need to get the applications out so that they also have enough time to prepare
the information and are ready to present it.
Right.
Yep, and I had a couple of things that maybe we've strayed a little bit from. One was there's a policy here for those agencies whose funding is being approved for the first time. These would be put into a separate warrant article for town meeting. I know. Yeah, so I know this past year we added 2 agencies.
And they were big asks.
Yeah, so
We should come up with issue advices.
revise this language to not necessitate doing that, or to actually.
Well, we should discuss it.
Okay, we should discuss it. Right.
We should either do what we say or change it.
Yeah, okay. The other is that it says town staff will make an initial determination as to whether the agency satisfies 5 criteria, which I guess is still done, or I'm not sure how that worked last year, but, okay, so maybe we can.
I think that's another point for discussion, whether that's, potentially some of the staff who are more closely, involved with the social services agencies providing these services and getting that input. I think probably defining that process, it needs to be revisited and redefined, I think.
I think the town staff can take a leadership role in reviewing the initial submittals, and not unlike the past practice of the finance director and the town manager meeting with and reviewing draft budgets. This is something we can do either by phone or by Zoom, or have them come in person early in the process so we understand fully what they do, how it supports the region and the town of Hanover specifically.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Thank you for pulling together the history for the last 6 years. That's great. Thank you. And I see a question from a member of the public. Yes, Dina, do you want to come up?
Well, to add to your history, I've worked for the town since from 1984 to 2005 as the Hanover Community Counselor, and I translate that to people who would say to me, well, what's that, as town school social worker. And one of my many assignments was to work with this budget, and I was told that I had to contact the agencies, make sure they were on board and filling out their application in a timely fashion. So I was very interested when I saw that this was on the agenda, and went through it and marked a few things. Town staff, I would encourage you to include Jen Gandrish as one of the staff people, because she is the welfare general assistance director. And I would also encourage you to consider maybe a Hanover resident, I'm not volunteering myself, but someone who has retired from working in the social services field, because I think they would bring a broader perspective to the discussion. I noticed in the next article, all social service agency funding applications talk about agencies being discouraged to submit glossy brochures, etc. But then in the actual application, it says attach prospectus. So I don't know if that's a contradiction, so I just want to point that out. Also want to point out the use of the term selectmen, which I hope you will fix. And then on the actual application, let me see if I can find it. It was on the second, I'm sorry. Yes, it's the last page of the application on the top question. Is the level of funding relative to the level of service provided to Hanover residents commensurate with the level of funding and level of service provided to other communities? If not, why not? And I think that's kind of a misleading question. For example, you fund WISE because domestic violence occurs in all communities, and you don't know when it's going to occur. So you fund an organization that can respond to domestic violence. So maybe in 1 year, WISE helps only one Hanover resident, and then the next year, 10, whereas Lebanon might have, 8. I just think that you're trying to make things equal, and it's not an equal playing field where these things are going on. I don't know if I'm expressing myself very clearly.
No, you are.
I hope you'll
Thank
ask
you.
me if I'm not. So I was very uncomfortable with this question because it can lead you in the direction or lead you to a conclusion that, well, they didn't serve enough Hanover residents, therefore we should cut back the funding. I don't think that's how human services work. And in that context, I want to again bring up the whole issue of homelessness. I mean, we've been blessed in Hanover. We are very fortunate. Lebanon did start this seasonal homeless shelter, and I heard recently that the building, when it's not being used as a homeless shelter, I believe Lynn Goodwin from Lebanon Human Services is going to be using it for a health clinic. At that, don't quote me, but that's what I've heard. So I feel like we can't just say, well, homelessness, we don't have homelessness, so we don't have to do anything. I really feel like this is, as the previous town manager accurately said, this is an area, a regional issue. And, the perception, I can tell you in other communities, having attended meetings in one such community across the river, when they were reviewing plans for a homeless shelter, was the perception is, well, Hanover isn't going to do its thing, Hanover doesn't care. And I really challenge you to change that perception. Hanover does care. So, I'm not sure how that could be put on a budget, human services budget. There would be no guarantee that it would serve a Hanover homeless person. On the other hand, if a homeless person shows up at the police station in the middle of the night, maybe there'd be a place for them to go. I will tell you, having volunteered with an organization called SHARE, which helps refugees and persons seeking asylum. And our family showed up again, this particular family I've been working with, trying to get them into the Haven. It was a no-go. They had absolutely no space. And it wasn't like that 10 years ago. So please put that on your radar. I think that was all I had to say. I guess, and yes, again, the question on the bottom of the first page of the application, does the level of funding you are requesting from the town of Hanover relate to the actual services you are provided to the residents of Hanover? And we want these agencies to be there, and we want them to be available. I can tell you that a place like Listen made it possible for me to do my job when I helped welfare clients. So we want them there, and I'm not sure that question really, it's not like, you have 10 people in need and those 10 people get services. You want this agency available to provide the service when the need arises. So it's a little different from crunching numbers. I hope I make sense.
Yeah, that does make sense, obviously.
Tina, your thoughts are remarkably on point, and thank you very much. I do want to not have you fearful that we don't judge groups necessarily, for example, by size of the number of residents that they serve. It's really more the need, the demonstrated need, and whether they serve a need that Hanover has that we're not providing for its citizens. It's and these questions are somewhat arbitrary, and we certainly don't look. They're not like a checklist kind of thing. If somebody says no, we still consider the whole package, and not just okay, well they missed that question, they're farther out. We look at the whole package.
I'm glad to hear that. When I first started, there was a whole big thing with visiting nurses, and the then town manager, the town used to give them a lump chunk of money, and the town manager then was not happy. He felt that people weren't being served. He had no knowledge how the money was being used. He felt there wasn't transparency, so he wanted to go to a fee for service, which meant I had to interview all these people and have them prove to me it needed help. I'm not sure that's really the way to go. There has to be a balance. And I hope you'll think about the seasonal homeless shelter.
Yes.
I'm sorry to keep sounding like a broken record.
No, thank you, Dina.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. So we will, thank you. We will look at this. I'm sorry, David, did you want to comment? No.
David Vincelet, 93 Lebanon Street. Hanover had a homeless shelter 8 years ago. My land was a homeless shelter. Robert Houseman came down, put a fence around it, had the people evicted, and then when the people were evicted, he had the buildings torn down. Even though he didn't have to. I had 3 years to redeem the property. He had it torn down immediately. There's your homeless shelter.
Okay. Robert, with respect to next steps here, staff's going to think about, hearing Dina, hearing Athos, we don't want to be overly rigid in terms and be cognizant of the idea of cyclicality with respect to demand and the need to sustain institutions. Jenny?
Oh, and sporadicness. And sporadicness, not just
right.
cyclicality.
Yeah.
But one thing that struck me hearing the presentations was just, for a lot of them, is how much value we get in terms of how much it would cost us if we were going to attempt to provide those services. And we've talked about this before, that the town's not equipped to provide certain services, and by working with a lot of these institutions, we're able to not only get the services, but we're able to get the services in a context where they have a support network, they have other professionals that they're working with, so they have a lot of depth and knowledge within that area. So I was impressed, and I don't know if we want to address that at all in terms of, it's like a different way of looking at the value that we're getting. It's almost like the flip, like what would it cost us to provide this? And usually it would be so insane, or maybe it's so hypothetical that it doesn't matter. But that seemed to be a little bit missing from the conversation, that where it wasn't missing, like when we're talking about having 1 or 2 community nurses, what is the value of that versus some of these social services that actually go and visit a lot of people and that have a whole nursing framework and background. So that's where, I don't know, it made me think, some of these things we can provide, some of these things are better provided through the social services, particularly if they have a strong track record. I love the idea of getting them in earlier so we can understand better how they approach the various services and issues.
Jenny, just getting back to your point about the value, it's really hard to measure value.
Yeah.
And we've been through this years and years ago with on an internal discussion. And really what I learned from that is that you can't really, these social services agents are the experts on their budgets. They know what it costs to provide the services, and of course we can, which isn't to say we just rubber stamp their approvals, their submissions, but to a huge extent, if their prospectus looks like it's in order, they know the value of what they're providing better than we can sort of summarize. So what I'm trying to say is, and we did this once, we tried to, for example, change their requests, in fact increase them, and we were cautioned that would actually could be problematic because we don't really, we the town don't really understand what it costs for these agencies to provide the services.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just speaking of like just understanding the value to us.
It's
which
huge.
is,
It's huge. We could never do it.
in terms of, that we could never do it.
I mean,
Or-
you kind of mentioned wise. I mean, think about what they do. It's just, Hanover could not do that.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing is a little latitude also for some bigger picture thinking as well. So Jared, did you have anything to add?
No, the only thing I was wondering was kind of what feedback we get. Like obviously, we continue to get these requests year after year from these agencies, and I certainly trust that they are, responsibly using those funds and using all the funds that the town is giving them. But as stewards of taxpayer dollars, just curious if we get feedback, whether that goes into the town meeting report or something from these agencies that says, based on funding that we got from the town of Hanover, this is what we accomplished. We require our committees to do that. I just wonder if there's any kind of feedback that we get from these organizations.
And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And I say,
Some of them are in the town reports, they submit things, but I don't know if we did it this year.
I know in past years-
Sometimes
past
there's
years we have.
summaries, like our committees, and sometimes the social services do a summary,
I thought
but
it was in the town report.
it could have been, I
Maybe it's
Feels
not
like
as-
100 years ago
maybe
at this
it's
point.
Not answering Jared's question though, like.
I think we can do, so what may I suggest that we target the October 1 or October 7th meeting for a review of potential changes to the policy and application, with staff reviewing it and updating it to reflect what we've heard tonight.
Great.
Good. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, unless there are any other comments on that, let's move forward to business requiring action. The first of which, please here, we've already voted upon. Thank you. So, second of which is review and discussion of ISO NE membership. It's a little complicated and technical, so Rob, give us the lowdown on this, please.
Sure. As is usual, Hanover is fairly unique on a range of fronts, including how it purchased power, its electrical power. The town of Hanover was the only ISO New England wholesale purchaser of electric power. Pete Kobaki, our Public Works Director, was the person who purchased our power. We've moved away from ISO New England and have joined the Clean Energy New Hampshire, the Hanover component of that, so that we're in line with the overall town policy of buying green power. And in order to close out our seat in ISO New England and to close out our fund, so the BlackRock fund is where we have to deposit a significant amount of money every cycle, we need to appoint some officials who can sign the paperwork. All those who were originally appointed have since retired. And with that in mind, I'm suggesting that the board, one, appoint the interim town manager and the finance director to serve as your agent, and also negotiate the closure of our ISO New England account and do what's necessary to migrate our BlackRock funds if necessary on or before September 5th so that we don't have to incur penalties. Ideally, we close everything before that and none of this is required. Well, that's not true. We still need our authorization to sign the paperwork. So with that in mind, I've included a motion in your packet that I would suggest you consider after you have some discussion on this topic.
Questions?
No.
When did you stop, when did Pete or his agent stop negotiations? Was that like a couple years ago? Because we signed up for clean power.
We actually did it I think we stopped using the ISO New England account in January and February of this year.
And so it's just been collecting interest since then.
We have about $55,000 in the account, and the account is going to close, and there's some penalties or potential liquidation costs to us if we don't deal with it in a timely fashion.
Well, we should make this motion.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Sure, I move that we
There's a
assign
whole thing
Alan.
Here,
Wait,
here.
read the whole thing?
You gotta read the whole thing.
Okay, good, sorry, suggested motion, why am I deviating? I move to authorize the interim town manager and finance director to open an account or accounts in such mutual fund portfolios and share classes as may be identified from time to time accounts with BlackRock liquidity funds, BLF. And to authorize the interim town manager and finance director to open the accounts and to effect transactions and select and change account options for the town in the accounts consistent with the terms described in the applicable BlackRock liquidity funds prospectus. And to authorize the interim town manager to negotiate and execute all necessary documents to terminate the town's membership in ISO New England.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jarrett?
Aye.
Okay, that's
Aye.
unanimous. Okay, thank you. We move on now to, bear with me,
This Board of Assessors.
yes, Board of Assessors. And Joanna, do you have any comments to make on this?
We considered basically 3 topics at this meeting. We had 2 requests for abatement, move to approve the recommendation after the applicant at Bercala submitted some information, unique property there, and so his property was abated. The other one, we actually did a site visit over on Lime Road, and the applicant wanted to submit more information, so we postponed that. And then there was a series of nonprofits that they submitted their paperwork and that we approved. So those were that was the extent of the meeting we're at the date, but last month.
Right.
And I don't think we do, I think we just adopt
Yeah, I move we adopt the accessory board of
assessors.
assessors. Thank you.
Advisory Board of
Advisory,
Assessors.
whatever.
The Accessory Board of Advisors.
Recommendation.
June 28th.
Yes.
Yes, okay, second. There's a second.
I'll second that.
Joanna seconds. All those in favor, any other questions? No. Then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jarrett? Okay, that's unanimous. All right. We move now to approval of items 1 through 3 by consent. The first of which is approval of minutes of the August 5th meeting. The second of which is appointment of deputy tax collector. The third of which is donations to the Hanover Fire Department and the Etna Library. Are there any select board members who wish to pull out any of the items from the consent agenda? No? Okay, then we can vote for it in a block. Just need a motion to that effect.
I move that we approve the items from I through, well, I don't know, it's 1 through 3 by consent.
Okay, second.
You just seconded it.
Okay, I just seconded it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's unanimous. Do we want to call out the donation?
Yes, I
Yes,
think we do, for
Okay,
sure.
we would like to do that.
That's usually Atha's job.
It usually is.
You wanna do it,
No, I
Athos?
think Jenny did last time.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, I was having trouble finding it, well, I was having trouble finding it, period.
I think it's in the town manager report, is it not?
It's very exciting. Do you want me to do it,
Go,
Athos?
go.
Oh, Jared's gonna do
doing
it. Jared's got it from afar. Go for it, Jared.
Thank you to the Jack and Dorothy Byrne Foundation for your donation of $2,000 to the Etna Library. And thank you to Jonathan Frischvik and Holly Glick for donating their 2006 Subaru Legacy to the fire department for a book value of $3,500 for use for training.
Okay, with much appreciation. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to acknowledge.
Yes, our new, yes, thank you. Thank you for serving. Yes, you're now official. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy.
Yes. Okay, we turn now to select board. Are there any town manager comments you'd like to make before we turn to committee reports?
Not at this time.
Yeah, okay. Committee reports.
I have nothing to report, although I did notice that there's a trustee of trust fund meetings. I want to say a week from Thursday, August 29th at 7:30 a.m. here in this room.
No, the Conservation Commission postponed or canceled its most recent meeting, whatever month we're in, August. It did remind me though, the next Trescott, we have to appoint another, we can do this at our next meeting. But we have to appoint another, I'm trying to think of the word, what are we?
Representatives?
No, we are
a member of the board of.
Yeah, there's an official word for it.
Board member.
Shareholder, yes, it's shareholder, thank you,
Yes.
Rob. Traditionally, it's been, since the Trescott Foundation Corporation, was formed, it's been a couple of board members and the town manager. So we should do that. We need to appoint, our next meeting is the Wednesday after our Monday meeting. So we can do,
September 11th.
yes.
And I think you have a planning board. Rob, you have I think maybe a simultaneous meeting.
It doesn't matter if he
Doesn't have to be there.
doesn't have to be.
No, yeah, you don't have to be there. Well, willing to serve?
Yes.
Okay.
Which meeting am I conflicted with?
We think there might be only because Carrie Oscar told me, this is the only reason I'm aware of this, that this Trescott Company meeting is
I may not be able
the
to make it.
September 11th, 7 p.m.
Well,
and
wait a minute, no.
No.
Trescott Company?
Trescott meets during the day.
During the
No,
day.
this is actually
No, no,
statutory. We
no.
found this out.
We
We can
kidding.
change it.
No,
we can't. It has to be
But we
by.
can change our
Oh,
bylaws.
because it's
We are
annual meeting.
going- No, well, so we are changing the bylaws, and the only way to change the bylaws is to meet in accordance with the bylaws. The
Right.
bylaws actually require that the meeting be held at 7 p.m., which has not been the case. So we are holding the meeting at the
I think we're
time.
scheduled on the 3rd for the planning board.
Oh, so you're available on the 11th at
Yes.
7 p.m. Terrific.
Well, shall we vote now? I mean, we didn't notice it, but
Do you have to notice it? It's an appointment, isn't
It's,
it?
I don't recall that we voted on it previous.
Just
no, we
kind of
have to vote.
happened.
We have to.
That, remember Jessica was very clear on that.
Yes, we have to vote. Okay, so we are meeting, we have
Actually, I don't know if you were at
a
that
meeting
meeting.
on the 9th.
Jessica was really clear.
Okay, so we're meeting on September 9th.
Yes.
We can have this on, so.
Yeah,
Rob-
put it on the agenda, please, Rob.
Yes.
We can do that.
More work for you, Rob, isn't that great?
Trescott Company, all right, 9, 11, okay.
I may not be able to make that meeting. Well, I'll figure that out.
All right,
Looking at the schedule. We'll figure it out.
Jenny, committee reports.
From Sustainable Hanover, I think thing that they really want everyone to take away is that the Clean 100 option, the cleanest energy, is only 1 penny more than Liberty's
Wow.
default.
Wow.
So, even our green one is cheaper.
Yep.
And the really, really green one is almost identical. So there's a real push to encourage people, if you've thought about, going full 100, now's a great time.
Can I just make a plug for solar? So the people who invested in solar cannot get clean energy, electric energy, because we can't buy into it still, as far as I know.
It is moving through the docket. They expect the court case to be heard on the 22nd or 23rd of this month.
Great.
And then we should have more news. It seems like they have some idea of how to work it out. I don't know if it'll be to everyone's liking. It's a little bit in the weeds. But when I get the summary, when it actually goes through, we'll just get on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, August 31st is the yard sale. Sustainable Hanover has all the information on their website if you want to either rent a space to sell, or if not, just come and check out all the stuff. Hanover Bike Walk has a recommendation for committee members and alternates, finally. So maybe we'll do that next meeting. So that's exciting. And that's all I got. Planning board is meeting September 3rd.
We're meeting next Tuesday also.
And next Tuesday, yeah, there you go. I knew that.
Okay, and then we had the Capital Improvement Program Committee met on August 9th.
Yeah, mostly going over frameworks.
Yes.
So I didn't think there's much.
Not a lot to report out there.
Yeah.
Jarrett, did you want to join in, downtown group or Hanover Improvement Society? What else?
No, there have been no meetings since my last report, either of those two.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else? No. We do have a need for a non-public, so
You need a motion, though,
we
right?
need a motion and a roll call vote.
But it needs to be read correctly. Why don't you just do it yourself?
Yes, move into non-public. Okay, discussion pursuant to RSA 91(1)(3) to ABDEL.
Second.
All right,
Whitcomb, yes.
Callahan, yes?
Rossi's yes.
Chamberlain, yes.
Burke, yes.
Okay, terrific. We are moved into non-public. Thank you all very much for attending, and we'll see some of you tomorrow. Yeah.